In the first-class cabin of Flight 512, no one expected a refined morning to be torn apart by a single piercing sound. Smack! Flight attendant Laura Jenkins's hand struck across the face of Elena Harrington, a black mother cradling her 6-month-old baby in her arms. The sharp slap cut through the quiet like a blade, turning every head in the cabin. Elena froze. Her cheek burned with a vivid red mark. Baby Lily pressed into her chest and burst into terrified cries. That frail sound, a child's natural reflex, suddenly became the excuse for the cabin's cold stares. A woman wearing a diamond necklace leaned down and whispered with bitterness, "At least someone taught her a lesson." Those words, paired with the icy glares, pierced deeper than the slap itself. Yet Elena didn't scream, didn't fight back. She quietly brushed away a tear and tucked the thin blanket around her child. Her eyes glimmered with an unusual strength. It wasn't surrender. It was a silent vow. Her dignity could not be stolen. Phones lifted in unison. Cameras framed the image of a trembling mother holding her baby beneath a circle of scorn. On the live stream, Elena was painted as a troublemaker who deserved punishment. A man in a suit shook his head and muttered, "People like that always think the rules don't apply to them." The whispers and glares turned the first-class cabin into an invisible courtroom. But for those who looked closer, Elena's eyes didn't waver. They were calm, steady, as if she held a truth no one else could yet imagine. Only hours earlier, inside her small apartment, she had folded Lily's tiny clothes and placed them neatly beside a box of formula. Her hands moved with care, though dark circles ringed her eyes. In a rare, quiet moment, she pulled her baby close, took a deep breath, and whispered, "We're going to be okay." The picture of an exhausted but determined mother mirrored the silent courage of millions of women. Back on the plane, Laura Jenkins adjusted her scarf and stood taller, as though she'd accomplished some noble task. Her voice rang out, smug and clear. "Some people don't understand the rules of flying. My apologies for the inconvenience." A few nods, even scattered applause, thickened the air with judgment. Elena lowered her head, softly humming to soothe her child. Lily's small hand clutched her mother's finger. It should have been a tender sight, one to calm the room. Instead, frowns and impatient shakes of the head kept pressing in. A wave of condemnation swept the cabin. Cold stares, cruel whispers, all aimed at the young mother. Yet through the storm, Elena carried herself with an uncanny calm. Not out of weakness, but because she knew. Sometimes silence is the greatest strength. And in that strange stillness, one quiet question rose in every mind. Who was truly the troublemaker on this flight? Lily's cries had barely faded when a sharp crackle from the intercom tore through the tense air. Laura Jenkins lifted the handset, her tone stern but tinged with satisfaction. "Captain Reynolds, we have a disruptive passenger in first class. I recommend ground security be on standby." Whispers spread instantly. The man in the tailored suit sneered. "We paid for peace, not this circus." The woman in diamonds frowned. These days, everyone thinks a first-class ticket makes them special. Each word cut like another blade. Elena clutched her daughter close, gently patting her back, eyes fixed only on Lily as if to shield her from the world. Suddenly, a young voice called out, "Everyone, look at this!" Mia, a college student, was live streaming on her phone. Viewers skyrocketed, thousands watching in real time. Comments poured in. "Finally, a flight attendant with some guts. That mother looks so arrogant. Rules are rules, no exceptions." The cold judgments of strangers rolled in like waves, turning Elena into the accused in an invisible courtroom. Still, she said nothing. She reached into her bag and pulled out a small bottle of milk. As the light hit it, for a split second, a silver QR-coded card flashed before her. She tucked it away. A nearby passenger frowned and whispered, "That card, it didn't look ordinary." But his words were drowned out by Jenkins's triumphant voice. "If this passenger refuses to leave, we'll have to enforce removal. Company regulations." Mia's eyes widened as the view count climbed near 10,000. The stream flooded with demands. "Throw her off! Don't let this delay us! Best flight attendant ever! Keeping order! Yet beneath the flood of icy words, different voices began to surface. Why is that mother so calm? Something feels off. The attendant's going too far. Who slaps a woman holding a baby? Seeds of doubt slipped in, fragile, but real. At the back of the cabin, a black man in plain clothes studied Elena. He didn't film, didn't applaud. He simply typed a quiet message. Stay strong. Someone sees the truth. Elena would never read it, but like an invisible thread, it bound her to an unseen community still watching. Then Captain Michael Reynolds stepped from the cockpit. Tall, with gold stripes on his shoulders, marking over 20 years of service. His cold eyes swept the cabin. He nodded at Jenkins. What's the situation? She answered quickly, victory in her tone. Passenger won't comply. The child won't stop crying. I recommend immediate removal. Reynolds frowned, checking his watch. We're already 8 minutes late. If we don't act now, we'll be delayed even longer. Whispers surged again, heavy as crashing waves. Some passengers nodded in agreement. Others kept filming, eyes locked on every move. Elena drew a deep breath and tightened her hold on her daughter. There was no trace of panic on her face, only an uncanny calm, as if she was waiting for one precise moment only she could see. When Reynolds gave the order to call ground security, Elena's eyes suddenly lit. She bent down, whispering in Lily's ear, just a little longer. For one suspended heartbeat, first class fell into silence, taut as a string about to snap. And every gaze locked on the mother at the center, silently asking, who was she to stand so firm in the storm of judgment? The air in Flight 512's first-class cabin grew so heavy it felt like it could be sliced apart. Laura Jenkins's slap hadn't just left a mark on Elena's cheek. It had unleashed a wave of collective judgment. Under the warm glow of cabin lights and the steady hum of the engines, Elena stood at the center of an invisible trial, where every glance became a verdict. Laura adjusted her scarf, straightening as if she'd carried out a great duty. Her voice rang with clarity and pride. Ladies and gentlemen, we apologize for the disruption. Some passengers don't respect flight rules, and I had no choice but to act. Her words weren't just directed at Elena. They were a public declaration of authority, and sadly the response came at once. A few passengers nodded in agreement. Some even clapped, as though to say, that's right, discipline must be kept. Elena heard it all, but she simply held Lily, her hands softly patting her daughter's back. To her, those words passed like a gust of wind. Across the aisle, Mia, the young college student, trembled with excitement, her live stream running without pause. She whispered into her mic, you all have to see this. A flight attendant just slapped a mother right in front of me. View counts shot up. 1,000, 2,000, 5,000. Comments flooded in. Good call. Parents like that need a wake-up. Acting like this in first class? Shameful. This attendant is tough. Well done. On dozens of screens, Elena's face appeared. She didn't scream, didn't lash out. Only a single tear slid down her cheek. One blink held back an ocean. It wasn't weakness. It was the pain of someone condemned before she could even speak. A man with slick-back hair and a gray blazer leaned toward his companion. We paid for quiet, not this spectacle. It's unbearable. The diamond-clad woman added in a sharp whisper. These days, everyone thinks a first-class ticket makes them special. Elena heard every word but gave no reply. Her lips moved in a soft lullaby, arms holding Lily with gentle care. Her eyes glowed with a calm that unsettled some. Because how could she remain silent, surrounded by so much contempt? That silence became a mirror, reflecting the chaos around her. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. Elena glanced at it, then set it back down. For an instant, the screen flashed. Human Rights Council. Missed urgent call. Jenkins caught sight of it, her eyes narrowing. Who are you calling? Think someone's coming to save you? Aviation law doesn't bend for one phone call. Scattered laughter rippled, thickening the air even further. Mia swept her camera across the cabin, her voice quivering with thrill. See? The whole cabin's against her. Unbelievable. Yet amid the cold tide of judgment, different comments began to appear. Why is that mother so calm? Something's off. The attendant is being too aggressive. Who slaps a woman holding a baby? A faint crack in the narrative, but visible all the same. At the back of the cabin, a middle-aged black man quietly raised his phone. He didn't film, didn't stream. He typed one line, "Stay strong." Someone sees the truth. Elena never read it, but like a warm current, it proved justice hadn't vanished entirely. Tension peaked. Laura stepped closer, her tone sharp as steel. "If you don't leave now, we'll be forced to remove you." Elena lifted her head. Her lips trembled, but her voice was steady. "I bought this first-class ticket. I only want to sit in the seat I paid for." A straightforward sentence pierced Laura's arrogance like a needle. She scoffed, voice dripping with disdain. "People like you always think you deserve more." The air grew heavier still. Captain Reynolds approached, gold stripes gleaming on his shoulders. He paused, surveyed the scene, then tilted his head toward Jenkins. "Handle it." First class held its breath. Every eye was fixed on Elena again, but this time, there were no tears in hers. Only a light that defied description, part calm, part resolve, part defiance. That silence unsettled the room, planting unease deep in their chests. Something was wrong, and everyone sensed it. The truth had yet to be revealed. The air in first class grew suffocating. Captain Michael Reynolds, with more than 22 years of flight experience, stood tall in the aisle. His stern gaze swept the cabin, pausing briefly on Laura Jenkins before turning to Elena. With a single nod, he delivered an unspoken verdict. This woman would be forced off the plane. Laura gripped the intercom, her voice sharp and clipped. "Passenger refusing to cooperate, requesting ground security for removal." The radio crackled with a reply. "Copy." Security team waiting at the stairs. Whispers rippled through the cabin. The man in the tailored suit smiled with satisfaction. "Exactly. Don't let one person delay 100 others." The diamond-clad woman curled her lip. "People don't even know the basics of decency anymore." Each word fell like a hammer, sealing Elena's image as the guilty party. Mia still clutched her phone, her voice shaking with excitement. "Everyone, the captain's here. This is the climax. They're about to drag her out." Viewers soared past 20,000. Comments stormed in. "She's about to get hauled off. Hope they ban her for life. Serves her right." But in the sea of cruelty, faint questions began to flicker. Why isn't she fighting back? Something feels wrong. A mother holding a baby got slapped in front of everyone. Is that justice? Elena sat still, her eyes glowing with quiet resolve. She leaned close and whispered into Lily's ear, "Don't be afraid, sweetheart. The truth will shine soon." Lily hiccuped and slowly settled in her mother's arms. To anyone looking with a heart, the sight radiated a silent pride, a vow not to bow. At that moment, the cabin door swung open. Two federal security officers, Ramirez and Carter, stepped in with firm strides and watchful eyes. The cabin seemed to grow heavier. Reynolds signaled with his hand. "That's the disruptive passenger. Take her out now." Laura smirked, her eyes gleaming with triumph. "Finally, the time has come." Ramirez approached, his tone firm. "Ma'am, please stand. Gather your belongings and come with us." Elena lifted her head. Her gaze was steady, her words crisp and deliberate. "I respect your duty, but before taking an irreversible step, please verify my identity." A few chuckles broke out. The diamond-clad woman scoffed. "Identity? What identity worth checking could someone like her possibly have?" Reynolds frowned, his voice like ice. "No exceptions. 5 minutes. If you don't comply, we'll be forced to remove you." Elena bent down, kissed Lily's forehead, and whispered, "Just a little more patience, my daughter. The truth can't stay hidden forever." The cabin sank into silence, taut as a string about to snap. 5 minutes dragged on like a fragile thread ready to break, and in Elena's calm eyes, a few passengers began to feel their certainty falter. Something was deeply wrong, and slowly they realized this story was far from over. Only 3 minutes remained on the invisible clock. Ramirez stepped forward, his hand hovering over the cuffs. Carter blocked the aisle, ready to assist. Reynolds checked his watch, impatience sharp in his voice. We're 10 minutes late already. We can't delay any longer. Laura lifted her chin, cold and commanding. Do it now. Elena gave a faint smile. She pulled out her phone, fingers moving quickly, then switched to speaker. A ringtone echoed through the cabin. Moments later, a deep, authoritative voice filled the air. This is the National Human Rights Hotline. We've received a direct report from Flight 512. All current actions are being recorded and broadcast. Be advised, this is now legal evidence. Everything froze. Reynolds' face drained of color. Ramirez and Carter halted, their hands dropping away from the cuffs. The voice was unmistakable. Not a relative, but a legal authority. Still cradling Lily, Elena spoke softly, yet with weight in every word. First class cabin, Flight 512. Your staff have quite a different way of serving passengers. The cabin erupted. Gasps filled the air, mouths hung open in shock. Mia's camera shook as she whispered, nearly shouting, Everyone, she just connected to the Human Rights Council. She's a lawyer, not just a passenger. Viewers shot past 35,000. Comments poured in, Unbelievable. That flight attendant is finished. Biggest twist of the year. Laura staggered back, her face bloodless. Reynolds gripped the seat frame, lips trembling. Ramirez and Carter exchanged glances, pulling their hands away, unwilling to take another step. The suffocating tension shattered, replaced by a deadly stillness. The voice on the phone returned, cold as a blade. Captain Reynolds, Attendant Jenkins, the entire nation is watching how you treat a mother and her child. This is clear discrimination and assault. We demand you stop immediately for investigation. Silence blanketed the cabin. Elena gently soothed Lily, as if this were any ordinary day. Yet to everyone watching, she had just taken control of the entire plane. The voice from the phone's speaker thundered through the cabin, each word striking like a hammer. Over the past 5 years, we've received 17 complaints of discrimination on commercial flights, all buried. Today, the truth is exposed, and we will not let it pass. Laura staggered, stammering, No, that's impossible. I was only following regulations. Elena turned to her, calm eyes sharp as a blade. What regulation allows a flight attendant to slap a mother holding her child? Mia's camera instantly zoomed in on Laura's face. Comments poured in like a flood. What kind of rule is that? This is awful. So, hitting passengers is the new policy now? The man in the gray blazer bowed his head, hands shaking as he tried to delete his mocking post about Elena. Ironically, his phone let out a loud oops alert, sending the live stream audience into laughter. The suffocating tension began to crack, replaced by waves of ridicule, and within it, the first light of justice broke through. Reynolds tried to recover, his voice trembling. Please, counsel, allow me to explain. But the voice on the speaker cut him off, cold as steel. No explanation needed. 40,000 people are watching live. Any justification now is far too late. Every eye turned toward Elena. She gave only a quiet smile, her gaze carrying a simple message. The truth always arrives. You only need the patience to wait. Right there in first class, Elena's phone screen lit up with a live video connection. The entire cabin could see a large conference room, rows of chairs, federal investigators, attorneys, and representatives of the Human Rights Council seated in place. The commanding voice of Chief Counsel Robert Lee rang out. We've gathered the full record of this incident, not only the slap, but every insult and discriminatory remark. The playback echoed through the cabin, each word slicing into the airline's reputation. Think calling someone will save you? People like you always demand special treatment. This is policy. Each line cut like a blade, exposing a truth no one could deny. Laura trembled, her face pale as paper. Reynolds bowed his head, sweat beading on his forehead, fists clenched in vain. Robert Lee's voice returned, cold and firm. Effective immediately, Flight Attendant Jenkins and Captain Reynolds are suspended pending federal investigation. We will recommend prosecution for assault and discriminatory conduct. The cabin erupted again, some passengers flushed with shame, recalling the harsh words they themselves had spoken. Mia swept her camera across the rows, capturing whispers that spilled out. I can't believe I clapped for that. I was on the wrong side. Through it all, Elena remained seated, gently rocking Lily in her arms. She didn't need to shout or argue. Justice was speaking for her. News spread like wildfire. The live stream had passed 60,000 viewers. On Threads, hashtags Justice for Elena and Flight 512 scandal shot straight to the top of trending. In Chicago, breaking news banners rolled nonstop, even though the plane hadn't yet left the gate. Ramirez and Carter, the two federal security officers, quietly stepped back. Ramirez spoke in a low, regretful voice. We acted on the flight attendant's report. We never thought this was discrimination. From the screen, the Human Rights Council's chief attorney replied, firm yet measured, you'll both undergo retraining. But remember this, power without responsibility is always dangerous. Laura buried her face in a seat, sobbing, please spare me. I have a family, young children. Elena turned her head, her voice light as a breeze. This wasn't a mistake. This was a choice, and every choice carries consequences. Silence fell over the cabin. Those who once mocked now bowed their heads, unable to meet her eyes. The woman in diamonds clutched her purse tightly, as if wishing to vanish. The man in the blazer had already deleted his cruel post, but screenshots had spread everywhere. Justice was no longer distant. It lived in every breath taken inside that cabin. The plane was ordered to remain at the gate. On the live stream screen, federal investigator Emily Foster appeared, her voice steady and clear. I confirm that a federal case will be opened. The Human Rights Council and the Aviation Authority have chosen transparency and will work together on this matter. Before more than 70,000 live viewers, Chief Counsel Robert Lee declared, what just occurred is a grave violation of federal civil rights law, aviation safety, and anti-discrimination statutes. All evidence has been secured. Laura and Reynolds were escorted out under the watch of federal officers. Cameras followed every step, recording the collapse of abused authority. Mia clutched her phone with trembling hands, whispering into her live stream, everyone, this is history. Justice is happening right before our eyes. Elena bent down and pressed a gentle kiss to Lily's forehead. That kiss, silent and full of love, echoed louder than any accusation. The cabin sank into a sacred hush, the rare sound of justice carried out in the open. And in that silence, everyone understood. The woman once scorned had become a symbol of strength and dignity. What happened on Flight 512 quickly grew beyond an airline scandal. It became a spark, igniting a global conversation about justice, dignity, and discrimination. The image of Elena holding her baby, calm in the storm, appeared on front pages from Chicago to Paris, from New York to Tokyo. National broadcasts replayed the moment the Human Rights Council announced the immediate suspension of Captain Reynolds and Flight Attendant Jenkins. In the United States, hashtags Justice for Elena and Flight 512 scandal spread from social media all the way into congressional hearings. Just months later, a new code of conduct, called the Passenger Dignity Protocol, was issued. It protected passengers, strictly banned discrimination, and required transparency in times of crisis. It quickly became the new industry standard. Within 6 months, passenger discrimination complaints dropped by 67%. Aerovista's revenues surged as customers returned, believing this was the airline that truly put human dignity first. New signs appeared in airports. Every family deserves respect. Elena, the woman who once endured a slap in silence in first class, now stepped onto a stage to receive the Civil Rights Award from the ACLU. Under bright lights, she held Lily, now taking her first steps, and spoke simply, dignity shouldn't depend on wealth or power. But if someone must stand up to bring change, I stood for every mother, every child, and every family. Her words spread like an anthem of humanity. Airlines across Europe and Asia voluntarily adopted the Passenger Dignity Protocol. The United Nations even cited the case in its Global Human Rights Report. Aviation culture shifted. Where once crew authority was absolute, passenger dignity was now at the center. Mia, the student who live-streamed the entire event, suddenly became a global name. Her first documentary, 35,000 Feet, Discrimination in the Skies, won awards, and earned an Emmy nomination. She shared, "I just lifted my phone, but I accidentally captured a turning point in history." For Elena, life slowly returned to a steady rhythm. She was still a mother, still awake late at night with a crying child, still packing bags for trips. But now, whenever she boarded a plane, no one dared to dismiss her calm gaze again. Her story became a living example in training sessions. Never let prejudice guide your actions. One wrong moment can end a career and change the world. The true legacy wasn't only in new policies, but in human hearts. Passengers who once stayed silent or cheered Jenkins later admitted their mistakes. They learned that indifference or applauding cruelty made them complicit. More importantly, they came to understand the power of calm and dignity in the face of adversity. Today, every AeroVista flight carries a reminder. Discrimination always has a price, but justice can heal and transform. Elena no longer had anything to prove. The image of her holding Lily, smiling after it all, became a timeless symbol, a living proof that human dignity is untouchable. Some slaps leave nothing more than a red mark on the skin, but others echo far beyond, shaking an entire society. On Flight 512, when Laura Jenkins struck Elena, she believed she was keeping discipline. No one imagined that blow would open a door to public justice, where every eye could see and the truth could no longer be hidden. The image of Elena holding Lily, calm in the storm, became a guiding light for millions of families. Her strength wasn't in loud resistance, but in unshakable composure. That calmness stripped prejudice bare, leaving injustice with nowhere to hide. Today, because of that story, flights are no longer just journeys from point A to point B. They stand as proof that human dignity is untouchable, and that injustice, no matter how carefully concealed, will always surface when the light of truth shines on it. Justice only matters when it's seen, heard, and carried out openly. And you, if faced with injustice before your own eyes, will you turn away in silence or speak up so the truth can be heard?